But back in the 1700s, Edmund Burke said, all that is necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. Well, there is no evil that's inflicted more pain and more suffering than racism.
Brown power to brown people. Yellow power to yellow people. Black power to black people. We do defend our offices and we do defend our homes. This is the constitutional right. Everybody has nothing funny about that. The only reason they get mad at the Black Panther Party when they do it is for the simple reason that we're political. And they don't want to admit this. There are a lot of young organizations around, but we are a political organization. We're an organization that understands that politics is nothing but war without bloodshed, and war is nothing but politics with bloodshed. People learn by example. I don't think anybody has gone with that. I think that when Huey Newton said that people learn basically by observation and participation, I think that everybody caught on to that. So what we're saying very simply is that if they learn by observation and participation, that we need to do more acting than we need to do writing. And I think the Black Panther Party is doing that.
All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper.
My poor little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
I am telling you, he's video recorded me. He scared the shit out of Anthony. He started in the car. He wanted to run his mouth talking about BB and the trashy mother. Fucking say something to him now.
Said that.
He's got me on videotape, and I'm still flipping the fuck out.
You called me a nigger.
I called you a nigger. You're a nigger. Nasty fucking nigger.
Okay.
There's black people. They're fine. They're educated. They go to school. They do what they have to do. Then there's niggers who can't talk right. They keep having kids. They can't get jobs. There's a difference.
You say stop dodging the issue by saying things like slavery was a long time ago. Get over it. Why?
Right. Well, that's the operative deflection, right? The idea that when we're talking about racism, we're automatically talking about the period of enslavement. But when black and brown folks are talking about racism, they're talking about what's going on now. They're talking about stop and frisk. They're talking about racial profiling, 2 million cases of housing discrimination a year now, even though we have fair housing laws. So I think when white folks do this, sort of like, well, that was a long time ago, it's inaccurate, it's disingenuous, and it's really sort of inconsistent because, frankly, we love the past when it makes us feel good. That's what July 4th is. That's what those fireworks are. The American Revolution happened a really long time ago. White folks aren't over that one yet. So it seems to me we ought to at least understand history does matter, and it continues into the present.
Okay. Assume that people know their own lives better than you do. In other words, black folks aren't crazy when they say they get profiled. I had that argument, I'm sure you remember, with a conservative radio host recently. Go ahead.
Absolutely. That one's self-explanatory. Right.
Okay. All right, good. All right, stop saying you have a black friend as a get-out-of-racism-free card.
Right. I mean, the reality is, first of all, we say that we're oftentimes lying. We don't really. But more importantly, even if we have people of color in our lives, that would be like a straight man saying that he can't be sexist because he has a wife. Like, who would make that argument, right? Just because you have people who are close to you in a marginalized group doesn't mean that you don't carry any prejudice in the larger society. So that's not a get-out-of-racism free card, and that's just not a legitimate response to the claim of racial bias.
Confront the long legacy of white denial when it comes to racism.
Yeah, this is a really big one. You know, the reality is I understand why white folks in 2013 might not see the problem, but what's really scary is that if you go back to 1962-63, when we were still an apartheid country, before civil rights laws had even been passed, between 2/3 and 90% of white Americans in Gallup polls at that time said that they thought black folks still had equal treatment in housing, employment, and schools. So I guess my challenge to white folks is, what does it say that even when racism was blatant, we didn't see the problem? And what does that mean for us now? If we didn't see it when it was blatant and we were wrong, and black and brown folks saw it and they were right, what makes us think that suddenly we've become really perceptive and they've lost their minds? That seems totally irrational to me.
What kind of freedom is that? What kind of social or political system is it when a black man has no voice in court, has nothing on his side other than what the white man chooses to give him? My brothers and sisters, we have to put a stop to this. And it will never be stopped until we stop it ourselves. Set workers against worker. They throw white workers a few crumbs. They discriminate against black workers or Latino workers, and we all end up losing.
But we've seen something else too. We've seen that when we have the courage, the good sense, the trade union values to cross the color line and stand together, arms locked, no one has ever been able to keep us down. That's why we created the CIO. That's why industrial unions were the first to stand up against lynching and segregation. People need to know that it was the Steel Workers Organizing Committee, this union, that was founded on the principle of organizing all workers without regard to race. That's why the labor movement, imperfect as we are, is the most integrated institution in America. Now, I don't think that we ought to be out there pointing fingers and calling them racist. Instead, we need to educate them